a radiogenic production.
Hi, Mark Quinn here again. So you probably know the drill by now. I worked on local radio in Bray in the late 1970s, through the 1980s and into the early 1990s, and I kept a lot of cassettes and reel-to-reel recordings of interviews with all sorts of people. Now, fortunately, with recent advancements in audio restoration, we can once again experience these unique sounds from the past. This podcast series largely draws from Bray Local Broadcasting and Horizon Radio's output and centres around interviews mostly from that period. And of course, these broadcasts weren't solo efforts. I was incredibly lucky to have Chris Conway handling the sound mixing and, crucially, Elaine Keogh as my researcher and producer. Elaine had a remarkable knack for finding fascinating guests to join me for our live Saturday morning conversations. Between 1989 and 1991, our small team put together more than 50 one-hour episodes of Quinn and Company, and the impact of our work was even recognised with a Bray Chamber of Commerce Endeavour Award in 1990, a tribute to the show that I'm still very proud of. And as we journey back to the past, I hope you enjoy revisiting these unique archive conversations. Today we're dedicating the next 40 minutes or so to a masterclass in local storytelling. We are travelling back to January 1990 to hear a rare extended interview with a true titan of Wicklow journalism, the late, great Jim Brophy. For decades, Jim was the brilliant mind behind the Bray and Wicklow People's iconic weekly column, The Man on the Corner. Long before the internet, Jim was our community's human search engine. If you needed to settle a bet about a 1930s GAA lineup, verify a piece of forgotten town lore, or uncover the history of a local landmark, Jim was the man who found the answers. And in this interview, you'll hear Jim pull back the curtain on how he built his legendary network of local memory men, his deep love for Bray, and the art of capturing local history as it happened. In this chat, you'll hear about West Wicklow, Rathdangan, in fact, where Jim was from, his unusual accent, and the challenges of producing a weekly column. So, settle in for a beautiful slice of social history, complete with Horizon Radio jingles, station phone numbers, time checks, and some ad breaks. This programme was broadcast at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, the 6th of January, 1990. So, enjoy. Jim, you're very welcome. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Mark.
How are you feeling this morning?
Oh, not too bad at all. A bit early, that's the only problem.
Everybody complains about that on this programme, you know. It's a bit early, but sure. Anyhow, tell us about the start of The Man on the Corner.
Well, when I was working for, strangely enough, for the Wicklow People as far back as 1949, when this fella was going to Canada. And I was interested in GAA at the time, and his name was Tom Hayden. He lived in Baltinglass. And he said to me he was joining the Mounties in Canada and going the following week. And he said, would you send down a bit on the local matches? So I sent it down. And from there on, I have been with the Wicklow People, mostly doing GAA. And then around 1972, the editor asked me, would I try a column? So I tried The Man on the Corner, and it has been going ever since. I only missed about 2 or 3 weeks in all that time.
Well, it's funny you should mention missing them, because I was reading this week's column. It's a bit of a sort of a look back, isn't it?
That's right, yes.
And there was one column that got lost somewhere between Bray and Rosslare.
That's right, yeah.
Tell us about that.
This morning, it was usually at that time, and maybe on Monday morning, I put it on the train. I went by train that time. But it was coming close to going to press, when there was a big row in Wexford. They couldn't find it. So the editor rang me and he said, the Man on the Corner hasn't come. We're a page missing. So I said I put it on the train. Something must have happened. And he had another search anyhow, and he came back to me in 10 minutes and he said, not a hope. Would you ever write another column as quick as you can and get it down to me? So I did that, and we saved the situation.
And you didn't obviously have a carbon copy of the original?
Didn't have a carbon copy, no.
Yeah.
No.
Do you do that now as a matter of course? Or?
Do that, yeah, generally as a matter of... I never keep a copy, really. I keep notes of what the various items are.
Yes.
And hope for the best after that. But now, at this particular point in time, my column would go down on Wednesday for the following Friday week. We learned from those mistakes.
I see. And
Yeah.
how do you physically get it down to Rosslare now?
Well, we send it down by bus now.
Right.
But also, we have the fax, of course, in the office. We can fax it if necessary.
Oh,
but it's not necessary now with the
new tech.
with the time.
I see, because you're almost a week or
almost
so
a week ahead. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And tell me about the actual writing of it. Do you spend a lot of time writing? Does it take up a lot of your time?
Well, I usually, there are set things like odds and ends, letters, quizzes. Quizzes is very, very popular. I find quiz very popular. For instance, I had a quiz recently there a few weeks ago. A fella sent it to me from Wicklow. Incidentally, before I say that, I depend an awful lot on what people send in. And mind you, if you're getting a good post, it's very easy to make up a column.
Because you're responding to that.
Because you're responding, yes. But this fellow wrote in and he said, would you ask a question about the animals that were on the old money, pre-decimal time?
Oh, yes.
So I put the question in, and it was a pretty long question. I didn't think it had very many answers, but I got 96 answers. And then the trouble really started. When the answers were sent in, there was one particular answer. There was supposed to be a greyhound or a wolfhound on the old sixpence, which was known as a tanner.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided after going to the central bank that the answer was an Irish wolfhound. But the vast majority of the people who wrote in said it was a greyhound. So the next thing, a fellow arrived with a book, produced a book, and there it was, a greyhound.
It was defined as a greyhound.
Defined as a greyhound, yeah. So a second fella, luckily enough, wrote in. As a matter of fact, it was Brian Cantwell from Greystones. He wrote in and he gave me a quotation from a book where it was a wolfhound. A third fella came with a book and it was a wolfhound. So finally, Brian Cantwell told me that when they were making the designs, they had to refine the Irish wolfhound. And it looked a bit like a greyhound, but wasn't really. So in the end, it was a wolfhound.
It was a wolfhound.
The first book was wrong.
Vital issues being solved.
Vital issues. Vital issues, yeah. Well, I got on to the central bank, and the central bank said, I beg your pardon? They were up to their tonsils, you know.
Really, yeah.
What are you looking for? So I said I wanted to know what was on the old tanner. So he said, hold on a minute, I'm too young for that. And he went off down to a fella down the cellar and eventually came back with the word that it was a wolfhound.
So it was
a wolfhound.
Well, I would have said greyhound, I have to say.
Yeah, it looks like a greyhound, all right.
It's 9.5 minutes past 9. My guest this morning is Jim Brophy from the Bray People, Wicklow People, Man on the Corner. Our number, by the way, is 829-906 if you'd like to give us a ring. 829-906 if you'd like to join in on the programme. Just curious about the distribution of the paper and the response you get from people. Is it from people all over Wicklow? Because you're in the Bray People and the Wicklow People, aren't the columnists?
Yes, that's right, yeah. We're in both papers, and the response comes from all over Wicklow. But not alone that, I get I'm always surprised at the post from England, the occasional ones from America, Australia, all over the world. Oh yeah, from all over the world I get answers and queries. And
why do you think that is, or how does that come about? People sending papers?
People send papers around Wicklow. A lot of people in Wicklow. It's a county well hit by emigration to various parts of the world, and a lot of people around Wicklow would have relatives in those places who live by the Wicklow people. I think There's greater love of the Wicklow people in faraway places than there is at home.
Very often the case, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Photographs play a big part in the column. More or less every week you would have an old photograph.
Every week it's have an old photograph, and they're always very interesting. And
they come in from
readers from all around the county. Sometimes we come across an old photograph down in the office and use that. And people are very interested to know who was in it and to try and guess who was in it. And there was a huge row one time about one particular photograph of a football team. 3 or 4 different fellas came up with different teams. It was a very old one. But we were never really able to solve it. But of course, it aroused interest and kept the thing going.
Of course, yes. People are always interested in that sort of thing, aren't they?
People are always interested in the past, strangely enough. Particularly the older people. I think my column would be read more than older people than younger people. But to get back to the quiz again, I find that if I could get questions relating to the past, like that one about the coinage, about the animals and the coins, they're more popular. I have had things sponsored at time, good prizes, and I wouldn't get the same response as I got to those simple things.
Well, tell me, you obviously get a good response to the quizzes. I mean,
very good.
Well, I can relate to that because I know in radio terms, if I've just given out the phone number there now, for example,
yes,
the chances are that maybe 1 or 2 people might ring in. If we were giving away something, even if it was £5 worth of goods or whatever, the phone would hop.
Exactly.
You know,
yes, yeah.
But you won't get people to respond necessarily to things that are being said. Not always.
Yes,
not always.
No.
So obviously,
I think that
there's a diet for quizzes and things. Obviously,
that's right. Yeah, only a very small percentage of people write. I know that by myself. I often saw things in the paper and I'd say, I'm going to answer that.
Yes.
And I'd never get round to it. So that if you get 1 in every 500 readers writing to you, you're doing well, I think.
Yes, and you clearly get a response from people as well that you know.
Yes, well, the point is that the quiz helps in this way, that you answer the questions and to say something as well. They add in something about, did you know so-and-so, or you never mentioned this, or something like that. You know?
Yeah. And getting back to the things of the past, you do sometimes as well have a column called "Is Your Name Here?"
That's right.
Where do you get the information for all of those?
Well, I usually go to the old papers. Sometimes I'd go down to Wexford. First of all, I had a big file of old Wicklow peoples, and that gave me the idea originally to write up a bit every week. That's very very popular too, because it relates to people maybe in very distant, remote areas that wouldn't be mentioned at all. And I wouldn't use what we call the popular people, like priests or councillors or TDs, because they were too well known.
They would have been in every week's edition.
Yeah, but if you can say Joe Soap up in the heart of Ballymount, I see where he won something a particular week. That catches them, I think.
Yes,
I think so. Anyhow,
how long have we had local papers in County Wicklow?
The Wicklow People itself is over 100 years old, about 104, 105, I think, years old.
And are there back issues from the very beginning?
Yeah, you can get them in the National Library. I think there's a few early years missing. But there are plenty of old papers. There's also the Wicklow newsletter, which dates back a long way, but didn't last very long. It was taken over by the Wicklow People. All those are available in the National Library.
Right.
And in various other libraries as well.
You did a column as well, and continue to do a column called The Long Servers.
Well, I'm not doing it now. I did it for a long term, but I found it very interesting. What I did was go out and talk to people who could be anything from 65 to 95. And I found that I was able to find out more. It was concerned only with Bray. I found that I was able to find out more about the Bray past that way than in any other way. Because some of those people, talked about where they played and what they did in the early days and where they worked and all that kind of thing. And some amazing stories came out of it.
Yes, yeah, very interesting reading as well.
Yes.
I did a program similar to that myself not so long ago, and it's terrific talking to people. Just let them talk. And
that's right. Yes. Now there's a woman down there, Mrs. Gilmore. She was 86, and she was on with me, and I heard something there from her. The old bats down at the dock. She used to operate those where people came in to have bats. Before the regular.
This is the one at the harbour here.
One at the harbour, yes.
Yes, yeah. There's still a big sign there on the wall.
That's right.
Bats,
yeah, that's right. That kind of thing. Also, I noticed the number of lawn tennis courts that are around Bray. There was one up on Church Road. There was one down on the Strand. There were a few others. And various things like that came out of this series, as well as some great characters. And one of the things in this age of frailty of marriage, as they say, one of the things that impressed me was the number of old pairs, who were so dedicated to each other, and how they had lived a long life and were still in love, as you might say.
Yeah, that's lovely, though, isn't it? Yeah.
Lovely to see that.
Yes.
And I think it's great, They talk about the husband, and he talk about her, and so on.
Yes. Did you record them, or did you just speak to them and take notes?
I have copies of them. I have copies. I didn't record them. I took down the notes as I went along.
Right.
And came across some extraordinary stories I'd never heard about before. There was a man over there in Little Bray. Now he wasn't that long in Bray, but an extraordinary story. He fought in World War I. And after he played with bands all over Connacht. He eventually had his own band. He gets up every morning for 8 o'clock mass, and he backs a horse every day. Great story, Yeah, extraordinary.
The secret of living to a ripe old age.
Exactly, yes, yeah. He's 65 years married as well, himself and his wife.
You've obviously got 65 years marriage.
65 years, yes. Yeah.
I just caught that there at the end when you said it. You also have an interest in GAA, sports and GAA. And you've written 2 books on GAA as well. That's
right, yeah. GAA, I was involved, I came from a place called Rathdangan, a very quiet little country place on the road from Baltinglass to Auckram. And GAA was going very strong in my early years there. And they had a good senior football team that won a couple of championships. But as a result, I was brought up in GAA, and then I moved to Baltinglass, now one of the top teams in the country, and I was secretary of the club there for a number of years. And when I came to Bray then, I was secretary of the North Wicklow board of the GAA, and at the same time was vice chairman of the county board. So I was more or less brought up on GAA.
Yes.
Lived with it and found it a great outlet in my earlier years anyhow.
And clearly that love for it...
never faded, no.
Never faded.
I suppose it's like any game that you get used to.
Yes.
Yeah, you find the interest sustains you in the end.
Take me back to Rathdangan. You left there in 1951 to come to Bray. Why did you do that?
Well, in 1951, I was working, at that particular time, I was working in a shop in Baltinglass, and I worked there for a number of years. And it was an interesting experience too, because it was a shop that sold everything, literally everything except drapery and coal. We had a small pub, wasn't half the size of this studio, and fellas used to come in there and have a drink, and some extraordinary characters come in, and great chats and stories and all the rest. And we sold everything, but the main thing, one of the things we sold was plough parts. We're talking now about back in the old days when there were no tractor ploughs. And people, it was one shop, say, within a 10-mile radius that have those things. So people came from all parts. So eventually, anyhow, I applied for a job here in Bray as assistance officer. At that time, it was assistant community welfare officer. And I got that, and that was my move to Bray.
And was that a big move for you, did you?
Well, it was a big change,
Regret
all right,
that,
because it was a different kind of style of life. I was working at that time for the county council. It's now the health board who operate that. But I worked here then all my life until I retired some years back there.
Did you enjoy that work?
Yeah, oh yes, I did. I enjoyed it all right. It was pretty tough because you were giving out money and it's very hard to satisfy people all the time when you're giving out money, you know.
Tough job giving out money, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Just take me back a little bit once again to Rathdangan, if I may, just before we move on. Your accent doesn't sound like a man from West Wicklow. I'm just curious.
Well, it's only when I listen to myself on the radio, I a few times, I don't know. I suppose it's very hard to know about your own accent. But I think a lot of people would say that I have a very Wicklow accent. A daughter of mine, and he used to say when she heard me, I was on with you before one time.
That's right.
And she said, "Oh, that's a terrible Wicklow accent you have."
Nothing wrong with that.
We're talking about Rathdangan. I was going to tell you about one of the things about Rathdangan in my time was the burdens. Every second house in Rathdangan was a burden. Now, there were four. The village is very small, and there were four. It's a crossroads, and on each corner there was a burden. But the problem with this, that arose, of course, was that if you went into Rathdangan and looked for John Burden, you wouldn't get him because he was either John of the Shop, Jack at Blackrock, Tom's John, or Mick's John, or something like this. It was the same with any burden that you mentioned out there. At that time, when on the team, there were 8 burdens, 4 O'Toole's, Graham, Fleming and Whelan. It was very easy to call them out, you know.
Sounds like the Trenton Fire Brigade.
But I was going to tell you about one particular village known as Ballymaconey and generally known as Coney. And there were 6 burdens there, and they were described as Mick the Ripper, Mick the Stripper, Garrett's Mick and Mick a Coney, Matt the Horse and Matt the Pony. They were all burdens. And of course, the Mick the Ripper probably referred to football. Mick the Stripper had a cow. Matt the Horse had a horse. Of course, the other fella had a pony. And that's how they knew.
Well, that's how you identified it.
Another thing that was very common was Ned's Peter, because there'd be several Peters. So his father was Ned, and you said Ned's Peter. This was very confusing.
Oh, I see, yes.
Garrett's Mick, and that kind of thing. You reached a stage where townlands were no good to you because there could be 2 of the set. There's no reason saying Jack at Blackrock if there was a second Jack at Blackrock. So in that case, you said Ned's Jack or Peter's Jack, his father, you know.
Does that still exist?
No, not to the same extent at all. No,
but there'd be still the same number of burns, presumably.
There wouldn't. No, strangely enough, no, there wouldn't. I'm amazed at that. It was the same in Aughrim and Ballymanus. Huge amount of burdens there too. I think they are even stronger now and they had all kinds of strange, extraordinary animal names and that kind of thing on them. So there was no way. So you might say like it was rude, some of the names, but there was no other way they'd know them.
What do you mean now? Strange names? They were christened with
Peter
strange
the
names.
Pig, I think, was one. You know. There's and that was actually, I read that, believe it or not, in a voter's register. It was the only way that they could know, they'd know the man in question. Because he used to keep pigs.
Well, fair enough, I suppose. This was on a voter's register.
Yeah, on a voter's register.
Official then.
That's right, yes. Yeah.
That's extraordinary. Oh, God.
You wouldn't have that problem in Bray at all, of course, because you haven't that number of names, and then you have streets and all the rest, so you're able to divide one from the other easily enough.
That's true. 829-906 is our number if you'd like to give us a ring. 829-906 if you're enjoying things this morning. I certainly am anyway. I'm with Jim Brophy, who's the man on the corner from the Bray people, Wicklow people. You moved to Bray. Was the move to Bray a big move? Did you find Bray a bigger, stranger place?
Oh, completely different, because Baltinglass was where I was working, was a rural, almost rural area. At that time, when I came into Bray in 1951, there were about 11,000 people living here. Now, of course, it's about not far from 3 times that. But at the same time, like, it was a huge change from the West Wicklow. West Wicklow was small, thinly populated. different styles completely. Come day, go day, God send Sunday. But Bray was sharper and more to the point, I suppose.
Yes.
But yeah, it was a big, huge change, all right.
And so presumably you've seen lots of changes in Bray and in Wicklow over the
Huge
years.
changes. The time when I came here in 1951, I remember I came up there I don't know if I had been to Bray before, but possibly on a bus or something like that. But I came up the Dargle Road and couldn't get around the corner. I was only a new driver at the time. Couldn't turn. It's still hard to turn there at that corner where you come up from the Dargle Road
That's
up
right.
the bridge.
That's right, yes.
But I had terrible trouble there anyhow, and there was a crowd had to come out eventually to show me how to get through. I was only driving for a short time,
Yes.
But yeah, so there was Herbert Road was wide open at the time, and there was nothing in Bog Hall. Very little around the Palermo area. The castle was there. I remember seeing the castle when I came into Bray.
Which castle is this?
The old castle in Little Bray.
Oh, yes.
The remains of it was there. There was up on Bray Head, there was very little. New Court Road was there, but Raheen Park wasn't there, and all the new estates hadn't come at that time at all.
Do you think it's good or bad that it's got as populated as it has?
Well, I suppose when I was talking to the long service here, so I was asking that question. Amazing the love there is for Bray, mind you. There's no doubt about it. Among those old people in particular, they wouldn't leave Bray for all the world. There are people down there in Little Bray who were flooded 4 times, and I said to them, if you got a house somewhere tomorrow morning, would you leave there? No way in the world would leave. They just love Bray. I don't know. I think Bray it's an ideal place, very close to Dublin, very close to the country. You have nearly everything in Bray. Plenty of activity of all kinds, sports, the lot. I don't know. I think Bray is very good, I must say. There could be improvements, of course, definitely.
Well, there's always room for improvement everywhere.
Yeah, that's right, yes. Yeah.
We're going to be bypassed now, so the load of traffic coming through the town in a couple of years, 2 years or whatever, will be less. That perhaps might be good for the town in a way, won't it?
I think it will be good for the town because cars are getting so plentiful now that it has reached a stage where you have enough of cars around your own area to fill the town. And at the moment, it's almost impossible to get through Bray. When I came to Bray now in 1951, it was much easier to get through it than now. You had no problem. It was just like an ordinary town.
Yes.
But at the moment, to get from the Vivi on a busy day down to even to Castle Street, you're talking about half an hour.
Yes, that's
sometimes,
right.
Anyhow.
Indeed. When did you get married?
1958.
And who did you marry?
Carmel Rooney was her name, from Shankill.
And how did you meet Carmel?
At the tennis club up here. I played tennis in the County Wicklow tennis club. We met there. And
was it love at first sight or?
Love at first sight, yeah.
Oh, you'd have to say that.
Yeah.
And things developed from there, and then you got married, and you now have 3 children.
That's right. Yeah.
Who are all grown up.
All grown up. Maura is living in Terranure. She's a teacher. She's married. And Mairead is at home at the moment and working, and Mark is also at home.
And you clearly work hard, but family life must be important to you as well.
Oh yes, so we have to look after, keep the home fires burning. I mean, the job means nothing unless you have a family, I think, and people to look after. I think it's what you really work for and live for really boils down to that in the end.
All right. Well, this week's column on the man on the corner is a bit nostalgic for you because you're looking back over the decade, and
that's right. Over the last 10 years. Yes. Yeah, I picked out bits there that were of interest, but there was so much stuff in it. It was very hard to know which was the best bits to pick out. There's a quiz there. I think I mentioned. I won't give them the answer, but there was.
Give us the question anyway.
Give me the question. There were 3 fellas on a boat, and they had cigarettes and no matches, and they they wondered, was there any way they could light this cigarette? So they looked at the sun and they looked for glasses, and there was no way. So anyhow, one of them came up with a plan to develop a cigarette lighter. And the question is, how did he do it? So we leave them with that.
All right. On that note, we'll take a quick commercial break here while you ponder over that one. Our number is 829-906 if you'd like to give us a ring. My guest this morning is Jim Brophy, and this is Quinn and Company.
Bray Bed Centre's January sale starts Thursday, 28th of December at 9:30. Prices have been slashed on all beds, pine, wardrobes, rugs and cane. For the first 30 customers, we're offering a 3-foot 2-drawer store bed for only £80 and 2.5-foot wardrobe, all colours, only £55, and much, much more at Bray Bed Centre, 33 Main Street, Bray. Phone 828-910. We're open late Friday and Sunday and delivered to Dublin and Wicklow.
Make home choice your choice today.
Home Choice Carpet Super January sale starts January the 2nd. Fantastic reductions on all stocks of vinyl and carpet. Monster reductions on all remnant, some by as much as 50%. So make your choice Home Choice Carpets, Quinsborough Road, Bray. Phone 828-598 or 828-631.
Make home choice your choice today.
It's the right choice.
Home choice.
Here's some good news for 1990. If you live in Dublin or Wicklow, Horizon is your local radio station, but one with a difference. From 7 to 4, Monday to Friday, we play the best in country, Irish and oldies. Music that no other radio station in this area plays. If you're fed up with wall-to-wall hot hits or classic hits, tune into the station with personality and a local flavour. Country, Irish and oldies, 7 to 4, Monday to Friday, on your local radio station, Horizon. Don't forget to tell your friends now. It's fast.
It's efficient.
It's effective.
It's Horizon Advertising.
To North Wicklow and South Dublin.
Phone our advertising manager Brian Kenny on 829-359.
Broaden your horizon.
And your business.
Horizon Advertising.
Fast, efficient, effective.
Very affordable.
Phone 829-359.
That's what you're listening to. This is Quinn and Company till 10 this morning. Jim Brophy is with me, and Jim is a native of Rathdangan. He's living here in Bray since 1951, and he's a writer, really. He writes for the Bray People, Wicklow People. He's written a couple of books, and you've also written some poetry, Jim, haven't you?
That's right.
And
a few bits and pieces, ballads maybe I'd call them.
All right, okay. You're going to read a bit of poetry for us now. This is Memories of 51, is that right?
That's right, yes, yeah. Okay. When I came to Bray in the year 51, I saw in the Dargle a beautiful swan. The swan, she swam down the river along by the walk, and right overhead was a big hungry hawk. The castle was there in sweet little Bray, and across in Palermo I saw cocks of hay. I remember the courthouse near to the Royal, and a shop on the sea point, I think it was Dial. I gazed on the head, it sparkled in green, but there wasn't a house on the place called Rathdangan. Then I went to Wolf Tone, they called it a square. It led to the country, so peaceful and bare. I tripped through the bog hall, lonely and quiet, no factory or hall anywhere in sight. Down through Kilbride, a similar scene, the cows and the sheep picking bits from the green. The Herbert was country, just a house here and there. To see a half-dozen was something quite rare. You were out on the farms at Outer Kilbride, a tree-covered country where a fella could hide. There was no Clover Hill and no Herbert Park. You could walk through the fields from daylight to dark. There was no rectory slopes and no silver pine, and of places like Ardmore there wasn't a sign.
Very good, Jim. Very good.
Yeah.
We mentioned a little earlier, or maybe we didn't mention, but we should have mentioned that you were a civil defence officer from 1962 to 1982.
That's right.
A few cups
yes.
of tea coming in the door there. Are they? There, he's gone off with them. We'll get them again in a minute. That must have been an interesting experience, because there were so many things happened in Bray and the surrounding areas.
That's right, yes.
That you got involved in then.
Yeah, the civil defence was always an exciting time, all right. I was there for 20 years. But when I came in first, we hadn't very many members throughout the county, but as time went on, they kept coming in, and we had a very good group here in Bray. And I suppose their success really stemmed from the fact that we lived in a hazardous areas where there was places like Powers Court, Bray Head, even Fancy Mountain, and faraway places like that. In those places at that time, there were a number of accidents. People got trapped during the summer or late at night or caught in fogs and all the rest. And luckily, we had a great group here in Bray, and they still have a great group who were prepared to go out and look after those people. And as a result of it, they got tremendous publicity in the papers and on television and on radio. And they responded by getting every bit of training they could to equip themselves for those things, and eventually they became experts. And much of the success of civil defence in Wicklow stemmed from the fact that those problems arose, rescue problems, fire problems, and that kind of thing. And people became more interested in civil defence as a result. So we were serving two purposes. First of all, we were helping to train people for the nuclear age, which we hope never comes. And secondly, and more importantly, we were preparing them for peacetime work. Now, one of the best performances by civil defence in Bray was in 1965 when we had the flooding in Little Bray. There wasn't as much national services available at that time as there are now. So the whole brunt of the problem fell on the civil defence people here in Bray, who were supported by a voluntary group. There were at that time, at least 40 people the first night, and for some nights who had nowhere to go. So the civil defence people, the welfare group, the wardens, the AFS, Rescue, and the others organised headquarters at Fatima House and did a marvellous job. And that went on for the best part of a month, where we had to look after people and get food, bedding and all the rest from the army. It was absolutely great training for those people, those young people in civil defence.
So it was putting into practice a lot of the training that you've done.
It was, that's right, yes. Oh, definitely. And they found since those things happened, the national policy about civil defence has tended to go more towards peacetime efforts, such as train accidents. Wicklow is a hazardous county because apart from the mountains and all that, we have trains running through here with dangerous material at times, and
the bomb train we call it.
The bomb train, yes. Anything can happen. But in Bray, they have always borne those things in mind. Now, down around the country, we had some marvellous workers all through County Wicklow. Some people, who were terribly dedicated and were prepared to work so hard on any kind of tasks that were put to them. And we ended up eventually with a very strong core of dedicated people, even though the numbers mightn't have been very big.
Right. This all sounds so interesting and rewarding as well, I expect.
Yes, that's right. Rewarding, definitely. You felt that, you had done something worthwhile when there was one particular incident at Fancy Mountain. It's out near Luggalaw, where there was a young fella in a very precarious position, high up on a cliff, and in such a position that he could neither go back nor forward. And I know one of the people involved that night, I can't remember them all, but at that time we didn't have radios, and we used to shout across the water. There's a lake there in Luggalaw, and somehow or other your voice carried across the lake. You shouted to know how things were going if they wanted more help.
Yes.
Now they take up a radio and they call them, of course.
Yes.
It's a different story altogether.
Yes.
But I remember one night in particular, I remember very well being there at one side of the lake, and myself and others would at times say, "How are things going?" we have someone coming, trying to support the person who was trapped and that. Worked out very successfully. Then, of course, there were, I suppose, the funniest thing I remember about civil defence, one of the funniest things was a puck-on Bray Head that fell down off the head and down onto beside the railway and was apparently concussed or whatever. But somebody rang anyhow to say that this puck-on was lying beside the rails and could anything be done. So I passed it on to some of the lads anyhow and they said that have a look. But Bobby Crowther was one of the fellas, and Bobby was always, he checked everything before he went. He called to the local vet and he said, what would I give a puck on when he recovers? Waters, you see. So anyhow, they pulled him up. They got him pulled up onto the railway track. And Bobby threw this water on him anyhow, or gave it to him somehow. And the next thing, he took a book lip and he was gone up the hill again.
He was grand.
Right as rain, yeah. There were several things like that. Birds even. Some people get very anxious to see a bird or something trapped on top of a big thing. And all kinds of sheep was another thing that used to fall down cliffs around Glencree, and we'd send somebody to their assistance. So they became experts in several fields.
My God, and it would almost occupy all of your time.
That's right, yes.
Rescued sheep and birds and all sorts of things.
That was the trouble, yes.
You were involved in the recent floods, were you? The 86
was involved to a small extent, not to the same extent, but at that stage, I had retired as civil defence officer, but I was involved in a small way, all right, helping out. It wasn't as bad. Well, I don't think it was. It was bad enough, of course. It was pretty bad, but I think there was more support this time from more organisations.
Well, I expect they arrived quickly.
They arrived
more quickly as well, and communication.
The helicopter has made a big difference. Before I finished in civil defence, we had several snow problems, and communications, of course, makes a tremendous difference. I remember one particular one around Farbrega, which is beyond Dockram, and I could get in touch with Dublin, who in turn could get in touch with the helicopter. We had reports coming in of people who hadn't had food, and occasionally one had come in after the helicopter had gone out. So you could contact the helicopter and tell them so-and-so's house is in so-and-so place. Amazing the difference.
The speed in which it can be.
Speed in which things have, we hadn't, well, it was only coming in 1965.
Yes.
But in the last one, we had, in recent years, we had that.
Right. 17 and a half minutes to 10 here on Quinn and Company. This is the last programme in the current series, but we'll tell you a little bit more about that a little bit later on. I'm joined by Jim Brophy this morning, and many a tale he's telling us here. 829-906 is our number if you'd like to give us a ring. And tell us a little bit about what you're involved with now, Jim. You've been writing so many things. You've been writing for the Wicklow People, and you've written books, and now you're actually writing a book, I understand, about Wicklow's towns and villages with Arthur Flynn.
That's right, yes. I had collected some stuff, and I suggested to Arthur one time, I hadn't that, between the Bray People and Bray old folks and various other jobs, I hadn't that much time, so I suggested to Arthur that maybe we'd join in on this. So he very kindly agreed, and we're working on it at the moment. It's about the towns and villages of County Wicklow, and it's about every town and every village in Wicklow, and it's really a history of those places, how they got the name in the various instances, the important things that are around them, and happenings in the area. Things like there was a royal forest in Glencree way back around the 12th, 13th century. Very little would be written about that. Well, we deal with everything like that in the various parts of the county, how certain villages and towns were affected by the rebellion of 1798 and by other things as well.
Well, I'll tell you something I know about the Glencree forest. They use the wood from that forest to build ships for the British Navy, I understand.
Is that right?
Well,
Yes.
I
read that somewhere as well.
There
yes.
you go.
Yeah, there you go. So
No, I'm just showing off.
behind time.
But there's clearly an appetite for that sort of book.
There must be an appetite. Like, I think that I have a feeling that every village and people in every village would like to know where the village came from. Now, there's so many different happenings. Very briefly, names make history. And for instance, Rathdangan is called Rathdangan. I can't remember it offhand at the moment what the explanation is, but because of something in the area. And you take a place like Roundwood, Untoker is the Irish name. And if you see Toker in any name, it means that there was a crossing there, a bridge. It really boils down to a bridge. And in the way back in early centuries, there was no such things as bridges, of course. You threw down trees and stones and crossed the water. So obviously in Roundwood, there was water flowing from the mountain way down towards the other part of Wicklow. And apparently it must have been a path and people crossed there. And as a result, they built this bridge themselves and they walked over the stones and the trees or whatever. And then it became the Toker. And there are several of those in Wicklow, which always indicates that it was a place where water passed through. Mm-hmm. Then there was what they call a boulia, where cattle were kept during the summertime. People went out. There were no man's land kind of thing, commons, and people went out and lived with the cattle during the summer. And as a result, it became a boulia. Now, there are scores of places in Wicklow like that. And that's why I'm just very briefly, that the names of places, the names of townlands and all that, all have history in them.
Well, they mean something.
They mean something, eventually, yes. And that's what we're trying to do, is to bring out where the town came from, or the village, or whatever.
Right. Okay, we've just got about 30 seconds left with you, Jim. I just have to ask you this question. You've worked on so many things, you've been involved in so many things over the years, but writing has been one of the main things you've been involved in that many people would know you for.
Yes.
Is it something that you would have liked to have done professionally, if you like?
I would, yes. I would like to have done it professionally, and I didn't have the opportunity. My father died when I was very young, and there were four of us, and I was the eldest of the four. I was only 8-year-old, so I didn't have the opportunities like that others would have. Mm-hmm. Yes, but I always felt like writing. And when I got the opportunity from the Wicklow people to do the GAA, from there I built up on it. But I think I should have started, I should have started some of these other things earlier.
Well, sure. Don't have any regrets.
Yeah.
All right, Jim Brophy, you're very good to join me this morning. Thank you very much indeed, and the best of luck for the future, and Happy New Year.
Thank you very much, Mark, and I wish you the very same.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Sounds from the Past, and that was the unmistakable voice of Jim Brophy, the iconic man on the corner, speaking on Horizon Local Radio back in January 1990. Jim's column wasn't just news, it was the living tissue of Bray and Wicklow's history, preserved by a man who truly loved his community. If this trip down memory lane brought back memories for you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who remembers Jim's legendary column. Until next time on Sounds from the Past, I'm Mark Quinn. Keep listening to the voices that shaped us. And there's more archive interviews available in this podcast series, so please like and follow us. If you'd like to make contact, our email address is radiogenicproductions@gmail.com. Once again, thanks for listening.